Welcome to the Play and Record podcast, brought to you by Live from the Groove. You can find these podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music and more. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Huge thanks to everyone supporting, sharing and keeping the vibe alive. Now let's jump right in. And there was regular incidents where the bouncers wouldn't let me in until they found out that I was actually part of the entertainment, and then they had no choice. So we had, let's have a think of some pretentious titles that we had for songs. I mean, A Day at the Snow Factory. There was one called Ugly Bastard Boy. Not so pretentious, just shit. I think I remember actually getting my first piece of hash by swapping a really bad recording of my band's music on CD. We had a song where in the chorus it went, all we can say. Yeah, Luke used to really annoy me by doing it live. He would go, all we can say, it's his turn, he'd go, Alex is gay.
Hope you're ready for the next episode, hey.
Hello there, welcome back to Play and Record. My name's Al English. Hope you enjoyed episodes 1, 2 and 3. The scene is now set and we're ready to get into the real stories. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but we're going to find out together. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's tuned in so far and to those who shared the podcast online. Honestly, it really helps. I'm finding it very difficult to promote just because of I've never done anything like this before. So yeah, any extra shares, any comments, any subscriptions, whatever, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And if you haven't listened yet to parts 1, 2 and 3, make sure you click on the playlist on YouTube and you'll be able to get all access. It's also on Spotify and soon Apple Podcasts as well.
I return with a mouth full of fire, a yearn that is more than desire. The rhyme takes me higher, the moment defined in defiance. The mic and the archive appliance.
Hope you're ready for the next episode, hey.
So I think where we left off last time, we were talking about joining bands, or I was trying to find a band. I tried to start a band with my friends, didn't work out, we were shit. From there, I didn't really know what to do, but soon after, the answer sort of presented itself to me. So as mentioned in the earlier episode, the lad with the Dreamcast, his name is Tom, and he had an older brother. And we were all learning the drums, so we all sort of got to know each other a little bit. And pretty soon, Tom's brother, he invited me to join a band. Now I jumped at the chance because he was a good few years older than me. So you know what it's like in those days when an older kid sort of reaches out to you. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, you feel special, don't you? And pretty soon I was going for like a little trial in this band. Now, we all used to go to this place called Ionian Studios, which is in a little area called Halliwell in Bolton. And it was basically an industrial park. And in there was like an underground unit full of rehearsal spaces for bands. And we were all kind of using that for different reasons. I remember going down there and being part of some drum percussion workshop thing that I was doing with my drum lessons. Other people used it for rehearsing in bands, so it was a really cool place, and it was great to have it so close by. And this ended up being the place that we were going to rehearse in. So like I say, it was underground space. It had a real dank feel about it. So it was a place where bands would go to rehearse. You had different rehearsal rooms, and each room had its own PA system. And you know, you'd go in there, you'd set your drum kit up, you'd bring your guitars, and then you'd pay for like 5 hours. So this is pretty much what we did every single Saturday. It was mad in those days because as soon as you came down into the place, it was like a fog of smoke. You know, everyone was smoking, and you know, we were all smoking joints and stuff. I got into smoking a little bit of weed at that time as well. I think I remember actually getting my first piece of hash by swapping a really bad recording of my band's music on CD with a lad called Tom, and I think he swapped it me for a piece of hash. That was the first piece I ever got. Probably about 14 years old at this point. But yeah, the place was fogged out and no one used to care. You could just smoke whatever you wanted. And yeah, it was, we used to rehearse and get into all sorts of states in there. But generally, they were pretty productive times, you know, so we all used to survive pretty much on pot noodles as well, which you could buy from the reception desk, and different chocolates that were in the fridge and stuff, which naturally became appealing after a few joints. There were also a lot of girls who used to come down, like friends of the bands, and you know, like I don't like using the word groupies because they weren't groupies; they were too young for all that shit. But they were like, you know, female influences were sort of creeping in here and there, and some of the other band members. So apart from Tom's older brother, Luke, all the rest of them were from a school called Bolton School. Now, it doesn't sound like anything when I say it like that. It just sounds like a normal school, but it's a very prestigious school in Bolton. It's by far the most expensive school. I think it's like £3,000 or £4,000 a term. And yeah, and if you've got a few quid, you go to Bolton School. We later all called it Hogwarts because you'd understand if you drove past it. It just looks like something out of Harry Potter. You imagine you're going to see Hagrid come rolling out of the gate or something, you know. It's like, yeah.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So they were from Bolton School. Really nice lads. In the very early days, you had Jez, the guitarist, and you had Dave Ramsey, the vocalist, and he was one of them guys that could like put his hand to anything. He could play the violin, he could play guitar, piano, he could sing, you know. I hate people like that. We had Sarah, she was called, as well. And I think Sarah and Luke were an item, which, as you can imagine, caused some problems later down the line when they inevitably broke up, and then she left the band. But yeah, they were good, productive days. And we used to make sort of like heavy rock, sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's I'm going to play you some actually. This is the first episode where I can really start to show you some stuff with actual recordings and things here and there. So whether that's a good thing, like I say, you be the judge. Listening to it back, there was a lot of like orchestral rock where we'd incorporate some piano into it, that Dave would play the piano and even a violin at one point. There was also some just like really heavy trash sort of numbers and some punky sort of feeling ones as well. It was a bit of a mishmash of all different sort of styles. I do remember the vast majority of the songs having like really pretentious song titles. So I've not even told you the name of the band yet. The name of the band was My Red Bullet. Now don't ask me why it was called that. I really have no idea. I'd love to be able to tell you. So we had, let's have a think of some pretentious titles that we had for songs. Let me have a think. We had A Day at the Snow Factory. There was one called Ugly Bastard Boy. Not so pretentious, just shit. And my personal favourite, Mummy, I Shot My Teddy Bear. We also had EPs that were called things like Archival and Inaugurate, you know, so yeah. So just have a listen to this. Here's a little live recording of us doing a gig in a place called the Gypsies Tent, which is no longer open. It was like a renowned little music venue / pub in the Bolton area. Check it out. So yeah, doesn't sound quite in tune. We had a song where in the chorus it went, all we can say, all we can say. And we had there was a backing vocal part where it would go, oh we can, you know, back and forth. And yeah, Luke used to really annoy me by doing it live. He would go, oh we can say, it's his turn. He'd go, Alex is gay. You know. Back in the days when it was still socially acceptable to say things like that. So the very first gig we did was in a place called Bar Retro, which was formerly called the Crown and Cushion, and everyone used to call it the Crown and Flick Knife because apparently there was a stabbing there involving a flick knife, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, I don't know. But it was Bar Retro when we played there. I think at Bar Retro we supported a band called Amigo, who were like a sort of indie band, and I think I've got a CD somewhere. I might be able to play a little bit of their stuff. There was also another band on called Lydian, which my friend Johnny ended up playing drums for soon after. So we were all sort of connected in this scene. Everyone used to come to the gigs. It was a great social, you know, thing, as well as it being about the music. It was about everyone coming together. And plus, we were only about 15. We were far too young to be in these places like Bar Retro, the Gypsies Tent, the Dog and Partridge. Now, unfortunately, the Dog and Partridge met its end a few years back when someone drove into it and ended up cracking the foundation, and it ended up being condemned and pulled down. And yeah, unfortunately, that's what happened. But that was, I would say, the epicenter of alternative music in Bolton, aside from the Alma, which is a tiny pub that's still going in the barren land that is Bradshawgate in Bolton. It's still going, so if you happen to be going past, go in and have a pint. I would later pay another visit to the Alma when I was launching my Record of Achievement Dweller record, which would go horrendously tits up. But we're not there yet in the story, so stay tuned for that. Also, playing gigs at the Alma when I was about 14 would be the first time I would cross paths with Rolly Rolls. Rolls played guitar for a band on the same bill as us in the Alma, and I think their band was called Panacea. Lots of Jimi Hendrix covers, I seem to remember. So Rolls now, he comes with me everywhere, all the gigs that I go to. Amsterdam last month with DJ Rasp, he was there. He came all around Bristol and Brighton with me last year, and this year we're going around Cheshire in November as well. So yeah, he really is the musical wingman. So all the money we used to make from these gigs, and believe it or not, we actually did used to make a few quid from selling tickets and, you know, just getting paid from the venues to do slots and stuff. It wasn't a fortune, but it all added up. And we used to religiously save it all up, and we ended up spending it on recording 2 CDs. Now the first one, as I mentioned before, was called Inaugurate. Nice pretentious name to start things off. So here's a little snippet from Inaugurate.
All that it was, all that it meant, was nothing at all.
and I was about 15 at this point. We later did an EP called Archival, which had a different bass player. By then we had Joe playing bass, and the sound was completely transformed. We were all into different sounds by then anyway, so they are very, very different EPs. We recorded these CDs at a great little studio in Whitworth, Rochdale. Now, if you've ever been to Whitworth, I call it the land of shoes. I don't know if it's still like that, but everywhere you go, there's a shoe factory here, shoe factory there. You know, that's what the whole place was. Do you know? But we had a great engineer who always used to wear shorts, a tiny little bloke called Pete, who I seem to recall is still around. Someone mentioned him in a group on Facebook, like a recording studio group that I'm in, some nerdy group, and yeah, he popped up on that, and I had a brief chat with him, so it's great to see that he's still about. Produced both of our EPs. Yeah, we were very, very happy with them, especially the second one. We started going a little bit further afield as well, venturing into Manchester. So places like the Star and Garter, the Dance House, which I think was on Oxford Road, and also the Roadhouse, which is closed down now. That was a great little venue that. But it was also very problematic because the people who used to book the gigs, i.e. Luke, the older members of the band, they just turned 18, so no problems. But when they turned up, I was in tow, the 15-year-old drummer, you know. So, and I did look younger than 15 as well then, and I've always looked young for my age. I don't mind it so much now, but back then it was a bit problematic. And there was regular incidents where the bouncers wouldn't let me in until they found out that I was actually part of the entertainment, and then they had no choice. But yeah, we used to love the Roadhouse. There were some great bands that used to come and play there. If anyone remembers, it was like there were international bands that used to come and play there, and not just bands, awesome DJs, and it was just a quality place. And there's not enough places like that are left now in Manchester. So as time went on in the band, I gradually got a little bit more leeway in the decision-making process when it came to making our own music and writing our own music. Some of my ideas were starting to be listened to a little bit. But I've got to be honest, being part of a band, I found it very frustrating because I seemed to know exactly how I wanted something to sound, and then other people would challenge me on that. And it's not to say that I was right, I probably wasn't, or maybe I was in some situations here and there, but I was so hell-bent on like trying it, and it did frustrate me not being able to sort of get my opinion and my point of view across. You know, I sort of like felt a bit like the butt of the joke a lot of the times, which drummers generally do anyway in bands. So it led me to seek control. So, as I mentioned in previous episodes where I've started to mess about with music on computers, using basic software and stuff, I love the control that gave me. I could control every aspect of the music. I could control the drums, the bass, the piano, the vocal. It was really speaking to me. So ultimately, when Jez and Ramsey, who were both the same age, they went to university. Jez went to Leicester, I think. I'm not sure where Ramsey went, but they both went to uni. And that was the end of my Red Bullet. I remember being really, really upset about it at the time, even though I'd kind of got my head around it anyway, but actually when it happened, it really upset me, because I've always been quite a sentimental guy. When things come to an end, I'm like, oh no, we're never going to do that anymore, we're never going to, and I soon get over it, but in that moment, especially when you're young and you've got like them emotional hormones and stuff, in your teenage years, it makes it really worse, doesn't it? It's like your first breakup, with a girlfriend or something, it's horrific, isn't it? And I think it was even worse for me because I was just so sentimental about everything. But soon I got my head around it. I had no choice, and I knew that it was going to be a different direction from this point on. Didn't really feel like joining another band and having all the stress of organising everything and bringing equipment everywhere every week, and it was a lot. So I started to get more and more interested in production, and plus spending the time in Rochdale in the studio with Pete recording the EPs. It really gave me like a bird's eye view of everything. He showed me inadvertently how to mic up a whole drum kit, how to use how to cut breaths out of things, and just the things that I would never have even contemplated before. And he explained it to me, and it was just so useful, and it was inspiring, and I just wanted to replicate maybe like 2% of that in my own space at home. So the next step, we did a music lesson in school. I had this teacher called Mr. Parkinson, who I still see sometimes in the pub knocking about, and at some gigs that we go to, and he helped me out a lot. And we did a lesson, and all the kids were messing about, not paying attention, but this particular lesson we were using a program called Acid Pro, and it was like Acid Pro 3. Back then it was like very, very early stages, and it's like a loop software. You had loops, you had different folders containing different sounds, you had like it was basically like EJ, like I explained before, but there was a lot more control. You had a lot more control. You could drop things in at different times, you could change the EQ, you could add basic effects onto stuff. It was you could even incorporate MIDI into it, and it was like the next step up, the next logical step up from using the serial box thing that was EJ that I got previously. So, and I can't remember if I asked John Parkinson, the teacher, or whether he offered, but he ended up hooking me up with a copy of the software that I could take home and install on my computer, and that is like where things really started to like change for me, because it just lit a fire. could drag anything into it. I could build whatever I wanted. First, it just started with very, very simplistic stuff. So I would drag in lots of different songs that I downloaded from like Napster or whatever, and then I'd drag this song in and I'd drag that song in, and there was a bit of the software called where you could beat match it. You could show where the beats were, and then you could drag the grid over it, which basically meant that you could mix another tune into it as long as it was the right sort of speed, and then it would mix in, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but all this just showed me how it all works, and it enabled me to make these mixes as well. So I would build like an hour-long mix of mad tunes and anything that I was just dipping my toe into, mainly on Napster and other things that I was ripping from CDs and stuff, and making all these mad mixes, and everything from like I think there was one and it had like Most Def on it, followed by Salt and Pepper, Push It, followed by the Chemical Brothers. It was just proper mad mashups of shit, but I used to burn them to CDs, and I used to put mad sound effects in stuff as well and just make it dead unique. I used to burn it to CD and take it to my friends' houses, where we always used to hang out in garages, because again, we weren't old enough to go to the pubs or anything, we were too young for that. So we used to hang around in a garage, get stoned, listen to music, and I would bring the soundtrack to that. Not everyone always liked it, because let's be fair, it was my early days and I didn't always pick the best tunes, or didn't always mix them in dead good, and some of them got very good responses, other ones were like, turn this shit off, but they were my first sort of little audience, really. The people sat about listening to that, and there were quite a lot of comic elements in them as well. So something was about to give back at home. My dad had been trying his best to kick alcohol for the last decade, and he'd been unsuccessful, but this was the time when he was really going to kick it. And weirdly enough, the exact same day I got my very first set of turntables was the exact day that my dad stopped drinking. Now, those two things are not, they didn't happen like consciously at all, but they just ended up happening like that. I went to Cash Generator with my dad, and I came back with a set of turntables. Yeah, they were brand new, even though we were from Cash Generator, and they came with I think it was called a battle pack, and you got some headphones in there, you got a little mixer, you got like a few records, they were like breakbeat sort of records, just like everything you need to get going. Some shitty direct drive turntables, but they might as well have been belt drive, they were that shocking. But anyway, I had them in the box, and then outside Cash Generator there was this pub that's still there called the Balmoral, and my dad dragged me in there. He said he wanted a pint, so we went in, and I was too young to have a drink or whatever, so I'd probably just have a Coke. And then that night he had some funny turn, like some panic attack or something, and he never ended up drinking again, and he still hasn't touched a drop to this day. So that was when I was 15, or so. That is, let's have a think, that is 23 years ago now. 23 years ago. So weird how things work out. But I was on my way home with my very first set of turntables, age 15, with no idea how anything worked, but I just knew that it was going to be the start of a new chapter. Do us a favour, if you enjoyed listening to that, then please press like, subscribe, and share it to someone you think might also enjoy it. See you next time.